want to say a word to your Congressman, Representative Scott Perry. As some of you may know, the Republican leadership in the House and Senate are working on what is called a reconciliation bill. It's Trump's big, beautiful bill. And what this big, beautiful bill will do is cut over $800 billion in Medicaid, cut nutrition programs for hungry kids, and cut educational programs. And at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, what they propose to do with those savings is to give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. Now, I am not in the habit of giving political advice to Republicans. But I would say this to Representative Perry. If you vote for tax breaks for billionaires and cut Medicaid, you will not be returning to Washington next term. Now, what is happening right now all across this country? We saw it in Philadelphia. Yesterday, we're seeing it all over America. Is that people are sick and tired of a handful of billionaires running the United States government. And I want you to think about it for a moment. Think about the richest man on earth, Mr. Musk. Worth $300–400 billion, running all over Washington, D.C., dismantling the Social Security Administration so it's harder for older disabled people to get the benefits they paid into. Proposing to cut 83,000 jobs from the Veterans Administration. I mean, that's hard to believe. You got men and women who put their lives on the line to defend our country. There should be no disagreement, Republican, Democrat, Independent, that those veterans deserve the best care they can get. So we say to Mr. Musk and his billionaire friends, we are not going to allow you to dismantle Social Security or the VA. And what I think there is also profound disgust with, and again, from the right to the left, everybody understands that we have a corrupt campaign finance system. You know, think about it for a moment. Think about the fact that Mr. Musk himself contributed $270 million to get Trump elected, and then for his reward, he becomes the most powerful person in government. But I want to be very clear in stating this also. This is not just a problem within the Republican Party, it's a problem within the Democratic Party as well. I I would say the overwhelming majority of Americans, again, regardless of your political view, do not believe that billionaires should be buying and selling politicians. And when we talk about oligarchy, I want you to think back 3 months or so ago when Trump was inaugurated. And remember this scene. Ironically, I got kind of pushed into the front row. I kind of walked in and I said, Bernie, you're up front there. So I had the privilege about being as close to Trump as you guys are to me. And sitting right behind Trump were the three wealthiest people in America. You remember that? Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg. And then sitting right behind those guys were another 13 billionaires who Trump had nominated to head up major federal agencies. Now, I think all of us remember from our school days when we learned about the Battle of Gettysburg right here in Pennsylvania. And it was a terrible battle. And 20,000 Union soldiers either died or were wounded on that day fighting to help end slavery. And a few days later, as you all know, President Abraham Lincoln went to the battlefield where just a few days ago people had died, horrible battle. And he looked out on that field and he said that so many words, our vision for the future of America is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. We will not accept a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, for the billionaire class. But it is not just oligarchy and the power of the billionaire class that we are fighting. We are today taking on a president who, in an unprecedented way, is undermining our Constitution and threatens our freedom of speech and assembly. A president whose agents are rounding up innocent people right off of the streets, throwing them into unmarked vans, and putting them in detention centers in this country and abroad. That is what happens in dictatorships, not democracies. And President Trump, we are not going to allow you to create an authoritarian society here in America. But it is not just arresting people without due process and putting them in detention centers. Trump, again, in an unprecedented way, is suing media for the crime of running stories he doesn't like. And right now, and I want to say this to CBS, the family, I don't know how many of you know this, 60 Minutes did a story during the campaign that Trump didn't like. So he decided to sue CBS and 60 Minutes for billions of dollars, and they are thinking of reaching some kind of settlement. And they want to reach this settlement because they are in the process, the family that owns Paramount, that owns CBS, is in the process of trying to sell Paramount to some other company. And in the process, they would make several $billions. So I say to that Redstone family, do not sell out democracy for $1 billion. President Trump is going after law firms. Going after law firms whose lawyers represented clients that attacked him, went after him or his friends. And some of those law firms are caving in. So I say to those law firms, your job is to protect the rule of law, not sell out to an authoritarian president. Trump and his administration are going after major universities. And I want to applaud Harvard University for having the guts to stand up to them. So we got a lot to worry about in terms of oligarchy and authoritarianism and a rigged economy, but it's not just domestic policy. It's foreign policy as well. For the first time in the history of our country, we have a president who is cuddling up to a terrible dictator in Russia, Vladimir Putin. So I say, Mr. President, it was not Ukraine that began this war, it was Russia. And we're going to defend democracy, not dictatorship. But it is not just Ukraine. Trump is continuing the terrible policies of the Biden administration in proposing billions more for the Netanyahu war machine against the people of Gaza. And not only does he want $8 billion more in military aid to continue the killing of women and children in Gaza, they have an idea that is so unbelievable that people didn't originally take it seriously. And their idea, as some of you may be familiar with, is to forcibly expel the suffering people of Gaza so they could build a playground for their billionaire friends, a Riviera. Mr. Trump, we will never let you get away with that. And I want to do something that we don't do very much in Congress, and the corporate media doesn't do it as well. And that is to take a real hard look at what's going on in our country today in terms of working families. Today in America, as you may or may not know, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of our country. If you can believe it, you got one man, Mr. Musk, owning more wealth than the bottom 53% of American households. You got the top 1% now owning more wealth than the bottom 93% of Americans. You got CEOs now making 350 times what workers make. And we don't talk about it much, But let me tell you something as to why I believe the American people are so angry. Over the last 52 years, as all of you know, there has been a huge increase and an explosion in technology and in worker productivity. Every worker in America today is producing much, much more than he or she did 52 years ago. And yet, if you look at inflation adjusted for weekly income, the average American worker today is earning less than she or he did 52 years ago. And during that period, there has been a massive trillion-plus dollars transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. That is what's going on in America today. Very rich becoming unbelievably rich, while at the same time, again, hard to believe, in the richest country on earth, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. Many of you are living paycheck to paycheck. You all know what living paycheck to paycheck is about? What does it mean? You tell me. Rent? Oh, one at a time. Raise your hand. Yeah, ma'am. All right. Utilities, medical bills. Right now, people all over this country are seeing significant increases in their rent. All right, they're seeing increases in their utility bills. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you got nothing in the bank, you're living under great stress because you can't pay those bills. What else we got? Yes, ma'am. Food. All right. You know, people are increasingly want to make sure that their kids eat well, not junk food, eat decently. And yet it is harder and harder when you walk into the grocery store to pay for decent quality food, right? All right. And I go grocery shopping in Burlington, Vermont, and I see senior citizens looking at the package, holding it up. How much does it cost? Can they afford it? So the increased price of food is a growing problem. What else we got? Gentlemen back there. No, what? Prescription drugs. In America today, if you get sick, just talk to somebody here in Harrisburg. If you get sick, there is a 1 in 4 chance you're not going to be able to fill the prescription your doctor wrote. Because we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs so that the drug companies can make zillions of dollars in profit every single year. What else is on people's minds? Yes, young lady right there. Education. Just talked to some kids today. Love to go to college. Love to get an apprenticeship program. I was in one of your schools today. Beautiful kids. And I sat and thought about these kids in Vermont, kids all over this country who want to go out and improve life in the country. We have desperate needs in America in terms of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, dentists, electricians, plumbers, sheet metal workers, construction workers, teachers. And yet, despite all of that need, these kids are saying, we don't know if we can afford to get the education that we need to do the work we want to do and work that the country desperately needs. All right, let me just say this, because I went through this with my family, and I see this every day as Vermont senator and as I go around the country. In America today, millions and millions of people are dealing with incredible amounts of stress. And that is one of the reasons why in our country, not only do we have a life expectancy that is 4 years shorter than people in other wealthy countries, but for the working class of America, it is 7 years shorter than for the rich. So here is the point, and this is a point that is very rarely made. If we were living in a poor country, we would have a certain type of discussion. I would come before you and I would say, you know, I'm a U.S. Senator. We're living in a really poor country. I wish we could provide health care. I wish we could provide education. I wish we could lower the cost of prescription. We just can't do it. We are a poor country. But that is not the case. We are the richest country in the history of the world. Now, what the establishment does is they create a situation where they tell you that politics is about a horse race, who's going to run for president, who's going to win, what kind of dumb thing did Bernie Sanders or somebody else say. That ain't politics. Real politics is taking a hard look at where we are today and where we want to go into the future. And where we are today is in an economy where the working class of this country is struggling and in many respects falling further and further behind, while the people on top have never, ever had it so good in the history of the United States. And our job is to get smart, to figure out why that is happening and how we can turn it around. And in these unprecedented times, we've got to think in unprecedented ways. So what I am asking all of you, it's not Bernie, I'm not going to do it for you. Deluzio's not going to do it for you. We have got to do it together. We got to get involved in the political process in many, many ways, because right now, with a few exceptions, what goes on is billionaires in both parties determine who runs for office, determine what the agenda of those candidates are. And our job right now is to demand and make certain that the agenda of the Democratic Party is the agenda of the working class of this country. And let me tell you a little bit, and it's important. You know, I deal with politicians every day, and people can give you wonderful speeches. They are dramatic, they're loud, they're witty, but they don't say anything. And your job is to make sure they do say what's relevant. Let me give you just a few examples. Number one, we're going to go nowhere as a nation unless we get rid of this disastrous campaign finance system. So when somebody comes before you, and they say, I want your vote, you ask them, are you going to get rid of this terrible, undemocratic, Citizens United Supreme Court decision and move to public funding of elections? At a time when the rich are getting richer and major American corporations pay almost nothing, some of them pay almost nothing in federal taxes. Why don't you ask them if they are prepared at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality to demand, to pass legislation telling the rich and large corporations they are finally going to start paying their fair share of taxes. All over this country, workers want to join unions. And they want to join unions because they know that when you're in a union, you're going to get better wages, better working conditions, better benefits. But right now, large corporations acting illegally are preventing workers from creating unions. Ask the candidates in front of you whether they support what's called the PRO Act to end illegal corporate intimidation of workers who want to join a union. In America today, here in Pennsylvania, and all over this country, we got millions of workers earning starvation wages. Nobody anywhere in America can make it on $7.25 an hour, not on $10 an hour, not on $13 an hour. In Washington and here in Pennsylvania, we've got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. And I've introduced legislation to raise it to at least $17 an hour. And here is an issue that some may think is controversial. I don't. And some of the unions are now raising it. All of you have noticed that Musk and his friends have fired thousands and thousands of federal employees. Now think for a moment. These employees, federal government employees, many of them union members, get fired overnight. What do you think Musk and his oligarch friends will do when artificial intelligence and robotics comes for your job? Do you think they're going to say, oh, well, we're going to work out something for you? They're going to throw you right out on the street. That's what they'll do if we let them. So right now, at a time when workers are producing much more, worker productivity is increasing, we should be thinking about a 32-hour work week with no loss in pay. Technology should benefit workers, not just the large corporations who own that technology. We need the best educated workforce in the world. And that is why our kids should have the opportunity to live out their dreams, to get the training they need, the higher education they need. 120 years ago, very brave people around the country, I think it started in Wisconsin, demanded free public education for their kids. And for all that period of time, free public education meant K through 12. God didn't create K through 12. The world is changing. Kids need more education. Let us make public colleges and universities tuition free. And by the way, if we are going to have the best public education system in the world, we need to pay teachers the value of what they're worth. And I've introduced legislation to make certain that no teacher in America starts off at less than $60,000 a year. Many of you don't know this because it's not talked about, but 22% of senior citizens in America are living on $15,000 a year or less. Got that? Can you imagine anybody, let alone a senior, living on $15,000 or less? And in the midst of that, you got some Republicans who are saying they want to cut Social Security. Well, we're not going to let them cut Social Security. What we are going to do is expand Social Security benefits. And we do that by lifting the cap on taxable income. You know, I get around the world a bit. And just the other night, last week, I had a very nice dinner with the ambassadors from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And we chatted. And I said, just out of curiosity, how much does it cost to go to a doctor in one of your countries? And they looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. Of course, in those countries, in many countries around the world, health care is seen as a human right, not a privilege. It is an absolute disgrace, and a failure of our corrupt political system that we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. Right now, if you can believe it, again, I keep saying if you can believe it, because these things are so outrageous. We have 85 million Americans uninsured or underinsured. Many of you have high deductibles, am I right? All right. And by the way, people in other countries don't even know what the concept of deductible is. The idea that you have insurance, but you got to pay the first $5,000, $10,000 out of your own pocket is literally crazy. All right? So we got 85 million uninsured or underinsured. We have 68,000 people dying every year. You know why they're dying? Because they can't afford to go to a doctor when they should. Talk to doctors, I do, in Vermont, around the country, and they will tell you patients walk in much sicker than they should be. Brothers and sisters, health care belongs to all, rich and poor, young and old. And that is why I have reintroduced, with 15 co-sponsors in the Senate, Medicare for All single-payer program. Donald Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. He is very dangerously wrong. And we can create millions of good-paying union jobs, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. In Harrisburg and in Burlington, Vermont, and in many parts of this country, we have a major housing crisis. You got 800,000 people who are homeless in our country. You got 20 million people who are spending 50% or more of their limited incomes on housing. In my view, we should cut the $1 trillion in military spending and invest that in building low-income and affordable housing. So, brothers and sisters, these are some of the issues that we've got to deal with. And I want to reiterate once again, what the system, what the establishment, what the media, what politicians do is essentially tell you you are powerless. The oligarchs have all the power. They own the media. They own the political system. They own the economy. And they tell you nothing you can do about it. Well, I'm here tonight to tell you that there's a hell of a lot you can do about it. I'm here tonight to tell you there is no rational reason why we are behind so many other countries in terms of health care, in terms of housing. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country, highest rate of senior poverty of almost any major country, more income and wealth inequality than almost any other country. Brothers and sisters, this is an unprecedented moment in American history, no question about it. But what I believe in my heart is that while these guys have all of the power and they have unlimited sums of money, if we stand together and not allow Trump and his friends do what demagogues always do, how do they stay in power? They divide us by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation. They get us to hate each other. But if we stand together and demand a government and an economy that works for all, not just the few, if we understand that at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. If we have the courage to go outside of our zones of comfort, talk to other people, talk to your Republican friends. They don't think that billionaires should get tax breaks. They don't think that Musk should be destroying Social Security. So let us stand together. Let us defeat oligarchy. Let us defeat authoritarianism and create a government and economy that works for all of us, not just the few. Thank you all very much.
hard. I think a few thoughts. So one, starting interpersonally is helpful. I think also trying to build back civic organizations and local politics, investing more in that. These are places where people are actually meeting, interacting, cooperating, often across party lines, meeting politicians from the other party that care about and know about their neighborhood and so on. Like that offers some opportunity. I think the nationalization of American politics has been a problem, But I don't blame people for being really angry about what's happening right now. And at the same time, I think that having some curiosity, doing some perspective taking for the people that disagree with us, that's going to be critical to getting out of this moment. And so it's hard when things feel like they're falling apart and you're constantly under threat, which is how I feel now. To tap into that, but at least the folks doing politics will need to, in order to succeed and regain ground, because real political persuasion begins with getting out of your own head and into the heads of the folks that aren't on your side yet.
And people also need to believe, I think, and this is, I think, implied in what you're saying, they need to believe that eventually things are going to be different, that there will be a time when we can have productive conversations again. Not all agreeing, but at least able to respect the other side. How do you see it, Scott, when the signals coming nationally are so negative? How do you see your work fitting in?
I think it's reminding people of their agency. That, I remember when I was in Minnesota, I was at a concert and I was with my then partner, and a group of guys who I'm assuming were very intoxicated came up to us during a love song during the concert, and we were holding hands like all the other couples were, and they told us that we needed to knock that ass out, or something was going to happen, and they were physically threatening us if we didn't do something. And that wasn't the moment for me to be like, well, let me get curious about this. Like, what's going on here? I want to better understand you, right? Like, I think it's so important to remember that we have agency and we have boundaries, and we can say, I don't feel safe in this moment, and therefore I do not have to bridge. I think it's ethically dubious to expect that people who are most threatened to be the ones that are doing this work. I think it really involves everybody to do the work of curiosity so that we have less of those moments happening. And also shining a light on people who, despite that, that fear and the real threat against their bodies and against their lives, continue to do this work and actually do transform people. And I write about those stories in the book, like Daryl Davis, and
give us some examples.
Daryl Davis is a black man who uses the power of music, and he's derobed hundreds of people from white supremacist groups as a black man. And I think about the work of faith leaders and LGBTQ leaders coming together, and sometimes they share both of those. They're queer clergy, doing the work in their congregations, even when their positions or their stance in their congregation might be at risk, because they see the benefit that it can have to create a more celebratory, more open congregation. And there's many, many people in every community that I've been to that are leading these kinds of initiatives. And I think that's why I really love this kind of work, because it highlights these stories that we don't often get to see on social media or in the news. And young people, I go to high schools all across the country, and they're really craving this. They really want the tools and the practices that they can use in their own lives to navigate this really hard moment, and they feel like they're not always getting that. Yeah.
Rob, what about you in terms? Who do you see out there at the national or the state or local level who are modeling some of these positive, healthy behaviors?
Yeah. Well, I can think of some folks on the left that are trying to build out a bigger tent. Like Bernie Sanders and AOC have been out on the road trying to get out into communities that don't just have existing supporters, and trying to rally support for defending democratic rules and laws. Then on the right, I think Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, has done some really good work through the Disagree Better campaign that he created when he was heading the national
We profiled him. Remind us what that is,
yeah.
the Disagree Better.
Yeah, so Governor Cox, when he was the head of the National Governors Association just last year, pioneered this initiative called the Disagree Better campaign, where he would get pairs of Democrat and Republican governors to film public service announcements, where they basically kind of sit at a table, break bread, rib each other a little bit, and say, like, we disagree about a ton of stuff, but also when it came to disaster relief, like, we pitched in and helped you, and we know that you'd help us, and also, like, we can sit here and we can have this conversation, and we can, rib each other and have a relationship, and that's the beginning of, cooperation, or at least understanding and lack of demonization across party lines. And we've tested these ads, and they are effective in improving people's receptiveness to having conversations across party lines. If people view this, they say, oh, I see these leaders, including one from my party. I mean, that's a way I should perhaps be. And more, support for bridging initiatives and in civic society and so on. So I think that's good work. That's important work. And a subtle thing about that as well is that he's maintaining a sort of center-right moral leadership on at least partisan division that is scarce right now, but has persisted a bit in Utah. It's been tough for folks who wanted to do it that way on the center right electorally. There's been a lot of pressure to not be that way, to fall in line with Trumpism, and he's done about as much as anybody. And I think that kind of an underrated aspect of how we get out of this moment is going to be that faction of the Republican Party regaining control.
If I'm not mistaken, it was he and his opponent when he ran for governor the first time.
Yeah.
This is several years ago. They came up with the idea of appearing together in a television spot, saying whatever the results of this election are, we are going to honor the results. So years ago, that wouldn't have been a remarkable thing at all.
Yeah.
But it was remarkable at that moment in time for the Democrat and the Republican to say that.
I mean, it was really remarkable. Yeah, Cox and Peterson, they're running against each other.
Yeah.
They do these ads. I should have highlighted this. They really inspired the Disagree Better initiative. Governor Cox was telling me that Peterson, when he got the call, was just like, wait, you want to spend your ad dollars on spots with the two of us saying we'll honor the election results? Like, sure, I'll do that. But tough thing for a Republican to do in the fall of 2020, and specifically saying we'll honor the results of the presidential election too.
Yes.
Which was just beginning to be intoned as a controversial point where it hadn't been before.
I do want to say that I think
yes.
there's also just examples in our own personal lives and locally of folks who are doing this. I think about the curiosity that I gained as, really being so lucky to have been born and raised in Hawaii and being around a culture of people of, who are so generous and want to include all and want to better understand the stories of everyone around them. Seeing my parents really model that through their charisma and also through like who they are as people and their curiosity, that any person that you meet every day is someone that can teach you something and is someone that you can learn from. And so I'm glad that we have these examples nationally, but I also would just welcome folks to think about their own personal lives of the coaches and the family members and the friends who model that, and that is just as important.
For sure, for sure. And I want to get to that, but I want to ask both of you, because people do worry about the country and where the country is. Is any aspect of the work you're doing scalable? I mean, do you see it something that could be taken to a broader, wider level? What do you see?
Well, I mean, we've learned a lot about the kinds of content that turns the temperature down, in the country. Seeing sympathetic, relatable folks, having your stereotypes corrected. Seeing leaders from your side saying, better pro-civility, anti-toxicity kinds of things. The Disagree Better initiative. A great difficulty is getting that, getting eyes on that content. And we have PBS, we have Judy helping us with this, but it's very, very difficult. And I think one of the biggest problems is, social media. There is a sense that there's no slack in the system, that if you're not pushing this polarizing content that makes people angry, that people tend to attend to, if you're not pushing that, you're not maximizing engagement. And then social media platforms, they'll tell you, if we don't maximize engagement because we're trying to do the thing you want us to do, we just get displaced by the next social media platform. We just bleed users to that other platform. And I think that this is a bit incurious. Like, I think that there is some slack in the system. I think it is possible to turn the temperature down on the content and lift up some of the content that's helpful rather than divisive without a massive trade-off on engagement. But I also think it would be really helpful, especially in this moment where people are thinking very seriously about turning off social media or regulating social media or restricting phone use by age, to see if we can build up platforms or options on platforms for people to have a little more control over the content they see. And maybe that market can emerge first with teens, parents of teens who would like the social media feeds that the teens tap into to not just be toxic wastelands of depravity, but instead, it's a scientific term of art, and but instead, be positive. And there's been a movement towards that. Maybe that's the foothold that we get, that we can start to make those environments.
So you've seen
better.
some evidence that may be out there brewing.
I think we could get there, but it's going to be an insurgency against the market right now. Also, the EU may help us because they're open to regulating their platforms and pushing the platforms to either open themselves up to be rigorously studied in terms of the consequences of engagement on their platform, or at least do self-study that's rigorous. That's a big thing because we can't even do the quality of research that would inform engagement with these platforms because the platforms don't let us.
Huh.
Very convenient, yes.
To be sober and think about for a moment. Scott, what about you in terms of scaling it up, or is that even the right question?
Yeah, I just want to build on, I totally agree with everything Rob's saying, and the perspective I would just add on to that is, at the Greater Good Science Center, we're really researching how to, what are the components of living a meaningful life and well-being and positive relationships, and they're all things that we have inside of us, awe and generosity and compassion and curiosity and love, and that is something that we all have access to. These are all wonderful muscles that are in our body that we can all exercise and practice, and I've seen principals really bringing this into schools and really creating a culture where if you see someone who is sitting alone on school grounds or during lunch, go up and ask them a question and have a conversation with them. I see workplaces that are encouraging people to bring a spirit of making others successful and being generous with your time and supporting others. And I think that if we can see this as like a cultural moment where we can really tap back into these really human values and virtues, it's totally scalable. And fun fact about curiosity, it's not only for the young. People get that wrong. The meta-analysis of the research actually shows that we get more curious over time. So the older adults in our country are actually the most curious. And so when I go to high schools, I say, who's your council of curious elders? And write those down, and what are the questions you want to ask them? And sometimes I get added onto that list, which I'm like, okay, whoa, I can say I'm your elder, but it's just this idea of how do we continue to create groups of connections that are multiracial and intergenerational and come from all different parts of the country and the world, and use our curiosity to connect with them and learn from them. And I think that is scalable.
I have a question for the audience, and I can kind of see you out there, but raise your hand if there's someone in your life, or whether a cousin, uncle, I don't know, neighbor, colleague,
Usually an uncle.
You've given uncles a bad name.
I know, yeah. I am an uncle. We need better PR.
Same. I will join with you on that as a fellow uncle.
Somebody in your life who you could imagine having a difficult conversation with about where you are politically. Look at that. Yeah. Okay, all of us. So what advice would we, this is what you've been talking about for the last 30, 40 minutes, but what advice would you have?
Well, I don't want to scoop the curiosity thing, but I do think it's a really, really good point, because if you don't open yourself up to the potential to have your view changed a bit, at least about the group that the person's a representative of, which is like, we should be open to such change. People can pick up that you're not open to it, and they're not going to change, And so I think that's a compelling thing about these face-to-face interactions is that you really do have to show some curiosity of your own. And then I guess I would try out moral reframing and think seriously about what's this person really care about? Like, what are their most deeply held moral values? Like, what would they fight and die for? And how can I connect this to be consistent with that when they might assume that there's an opposition there? And I think we can find those kinds of appeals, and they certainly work better. It's funny because it's not intuitive, like we
It's not.
No. If we tried to sell a car this way, it would involve like telling somebody how excited we were to get their money and all the things we were going to spend it on. And we would never sell a car that way. You would talk to them about what's in it for them based on what they value, and we should think a bit like that when we have a political, okay. It doesn't sound as good.
I like it.
Yeah. I guess I work in persuasion maybe too much, but yeah. But that perspective taking is also, it's also a humane thing to do. It's a way to, show some respect for our fellow citizens.
So Scott, he stole your curiosity.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's so right.
What would you expand on to say to folks if they're going to have a difficult conversation?
Yeah, I think that there are so many ways to exercise that muscle of curiosity. Rob gave some great suggestions. You can go on a curiosity stroll around your neighborhood and just be really curious about what you're seeing, the people that you're seeing on your walk. Maybe introduce yourself to neighbors you don't yet know. It doesn't have to be directly entering the arena, like the first thing you do to exercise your curiosity. And then the other thing I would say is remember the phrase, tell me more. I think that's such a great, easy phrase to put in your pocket. And, when your loved one comes home and, they share something that's exciting, you say, like, that's great, babe. Maybe instead build on that and say, like, and tell me more. Like, tell me more about why you were so excited about your day. And tell me more about, who you got to meet during this, like, fabulous day. And, and thinking about the quality of the questions we're asking. I actually have on my phone a list of powerful questions. And so, I like questions like, tell me about a belief you've had that you held strongly, but you changed your mind on in the last year. Or tell me about something that made you laugh, this last month. Or, tell me about someone that you're really missing right now, And I think that just changes that you can feel the atmosphere of a conversation and relationship changing when you come from that place of courage and ask a different quality of questions. So those are the tips I would give.
We'd like you to share that list on your...
Oh, yeah, sure, yes, yeah.
All right, so we only have a minute left. I just that was such a great note to end on, but I'm going to ask one more question. What is the next thing you want to explore in your field? What would you say?
I guess for me, that rule breaking, democratic rule breaking, is happening so fast right now that it's hard to focus the energy against it, to defend democratic norms and rules. And I want to try to very systematically study which of these things really resonate with people, which ones can you create larger consensus around, and how to be persuasive about that so that we can hold ground.
What's the next thing you want to, or next couple things you want to look at?
So I'm actually buying a school bus, and this is seriously happening, and I'm transforming it to go on a road trip next year. It's a kind of a encore of my Toyota Prius journey that I did a year around the country, but with way more height clearance, which I'm very excited about. But the idea is, how do we showcase stories of people who are coming together across their differences, not just to dialogue and talk, but to actually do something that makes this country better for all. And I think that's such a great gateway to this work, because sometimes it feels really scary to meet someone who's different from you and engage in a conversation. But if you're doing something together, you're volunteering, or you're, participating at, the next food drive, that's such a great way to meet people who might be very different from you, and a place to exercise your curiosity to learn and grow. So see you all on the bus tour.
Nice. What's more receiving than a school bus, than a yellow school bus? Scott Shikagoa, Rob Willer, thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
You both were great. Just great, really great. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
You know, we got quite a few.
What time do you close the desk tonight?
Tonight, what time do we close? We're closing. What time is it? Closing tonight, silly? 9:14. 9.
Oh, I got time to come in then. Okay. Thanks. Hey, Mystery, how are you? I got time. I'm not going to schlep around a racing form. What time do you close the desk tonight?
Tonight, what time do we close? We're closing. What time is it? Closing tonight, silly? 9.
Oh, I got time to come in. Okay. Thanks. Hey, Mystery, how are you? I got time. I'm not going to schlep around a racing form. -5. What time do you close the desk tonight? Sure. That's a big nut, man. -5 is too much. That's too big a spread. -5 is, I don't know, I'll take the points. Do. Hey, it's Yo-Yo Boy again. Yo-Yo Boy. Remember the guy, I want to show you yo-yo, you can say no. I said no. Yeah, I've got, I don't even have a protective case on my camera right now because of the heat. It's 90 degrees. All right, so we got like a bride, we got married, we got the photographer. We're looking sharp. We got bows on the back. All right.
Look at this. We're gonna cross the street. I'll give you this back. We're gonna cross South Shore.
Must be the ear of the soy boy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, boys. It's going to be a hot walk tonight. So might as well just surrender ourselves to the elements here. I think we'll go down let's see. I don't know if they really got married. Yeah, it's not too late. Probably is. They're probably already married. Friday Night Wildness. We're gonna head down Las Vegas Boulevard. The sun goes down a little bit. You know, I don't know. I don't really know what the divorce rate is. Looks like we're going to be another shop here, another failure. What's up, Ramsey? Chewbacca Roar. How you doing today, buddy? Try to hit down the shady side here.
Wait.
It's a lot more developed. It used to look more elegant if it was possible back in the day. You had more room between casinos. Now it just looks like a freaking money grab everywhere. It just doesn't really, not that it had a lot of beauty, but it was kind of cool. Yeah, they actually had streets. Now you can't really take a walk. It gets all nutty ass up and down. Walkovers, escalators are off in summertime. You got to go through hotels, out of hotels. It's a nightmare. Yeah, it's changed a lot. It's become more corporate, and it just becomes more greedy over time. The mob didn't really care about profits before, as long as they could launder money. If you made a profit, it was a happy accident. All right, we're gonna head on down. Yeah, there's a lot of crime in this area, particularly where I usually walk down behind the Cortez over there. Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to live for free, this is the town I would head to. I would just kick a piece of plywood off and live free. That's it. Yeah, I gave to Wounded Warrior. I like it. It's very important we support our vets that came back in worse shape than when they left. We owe them everything. This is Las Vegas Boulevard downtown. We're making our way south here. Yeah, you can see some of the videos of the old Vegas. This is really old school. It's crap. So we'll start making our way down towards the art district. We'll be weaving back and forth across the street here. Yeah, old Vegas was style. I mean, if you went in like some kind of bum, the first guy would ask you to leave politely. The next guy would whisper in your ear what's going to happen to you if you don't leave. And if you still insist on saying, well, you're probably going to be physically hurt. Who's that from? Naomi. Thank you, baby doll. Thank you. Thank you, girl. We're getting ready for summer. 90 degrees.
Wait. Wait. Wait.
Wait. Thank you, babe. Let's give Naomi a big thumbs up there. We head down. Yeah, this is not going to be as scary. We're not really going down to bad areas per se. We did that the first 2 nights. I slept well. I've slept very well down here because I'm You know, I'm putting down a lot of miles here. Always smells like a sewer here. I think I'm down like $100 now. Amanda was traumatized by the end of last night. Absolutely traumatized by that. We're gonna do that train again. That was pretty cool. Then the gold train came along and doubled it. Here's the pawn shop, boys. Get all the cash you need. Wow, they're only open till 7 o'clock. All these places used to have night windows for pawning. We have to go through the boring area here. Definitely a warm night. Tomorrow's weather is going to change dramatically. There's a cold front. So I thought I was going to head back Monday. I'm going to head back